The journey is not a short or sharp or fast one. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Alicia Kyrgios, 3-time fitness world champion and a powerhouse in the fitness industry. She is a well-respected coach, 141 pro card wins, 17 world and international pro title wins.
9 out of 10 people will come to you and say, I want to go pro, I want a pro card. Well, why? Why do you want the pro card? What does it mean to you? What's your driving force? And we like to come from the place of knowing the why first. The most successful people are intrinsically motivated by reasons and whys that are much deeper than aesthetics and approval. If you can just battle it out, on the other side of that level of discomfort is going to be some pretty beautiful moments of improvements. Yes, this is going to be a future champion.
Welcome back to the Comp Closet podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm here with the incredible 3-time fitness world champion, Alicia Kyrgios. She's also an incredible comp prep coach and my coach as well. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, babe. What an introduction. Like, how do I even go after that?
Yeah, no worries. How is Peak Week going for you as a coach?
Well, I think Sarah kind of has a bit of a feel for how Peak Week's going and how crazy it is. And also mum life over here, because she messages Christos, is Ali on her way? I'm looking down as I'm looking up at an athlete who's, obviously half naked standing there for me to critique, going, oh my God, what day is it? That can't be today. That's tomorrow. So here I sit in all my glory, tights and a mum bun. That pretty much sums up how Peak Week's going. Hectic, busy, crazy, but super pumped too. I'm so excited. Every single time one of them walks in and I'm assessing, I'm like, I'm pumped for you, because I know what we've gone through to get to that point. I know the challenges that each individual has undertaken, and I can see the fantastic improvements in their physique. So for me, it's like that mother hen moment of, hell yeah, I'm pumped to see this individual take to the stage. So Peak Week has been beautiful chaos is probably the best way to describe it. Beautiful chaos.
Yeah, exactly. Very exciting. And for the listeners, can you give a bit of a background on your competing history and also how you got into coaching?
So I was saying to Sarah offline, this is a bit of an OG moment. We're digging into the files now. I went pro in the very first show that was brought to the shores in Australia in 2013. So that's going back, actually, 2013. It was early. And I had been prepping for that moment for several years and competing in other federations first before I came to that one. And I've got to admit that competing for me was one of the things that cemented what I was already doing in this industry and in this space further. The whole concept of taking a physique and cultivating it and crafting it and growing it and transforming it and then showcasing that on a stage. There's just something so beautiful about the process. So I fell in love with the process myself. I fell in love with taking others on the journey to do the same thing. And, fast forward, I've been doing this for 14 years now. So fast forward 14 years and here I am still doing what I love on a much bigger scale. And now obviously moving into a beautiful new chapter with this amazing new brand that we're all so excited to be a part of. And I just can't wait to see the inaugural show this Saturday. It's going to be a big one.
Yes, I'm so excited to watch it as well. I think the hype is so high for this show and everyone's so positive. So, yeah, it is very exciting. So you've obviously traveled around the world and you will be this year as well, coaching and competing and things. How has competing elevated your business?
Look, it's a bit of a funny story, actually. I started out mainly working only with athletes and, competition-based clients. So I had a couple of performance facilities. We used to run boot camps. We had an element of a Gen Pop client base, sure. But I had a lot more athlete focus and performance focused clientele. So for me, the change in my business has actually happened since COVID, where we've actually grown a little bit more of a general population arm to it. And now I really enjoy working with both sides of the coin. But competition itself has probably elevated the business in the sense of year-on-year improvements in the athlete themselves. So it's been a wonderful thing to see the evolution of the competing landscape, the evolution of the categories and the physiques and the conditioning levels that we're going to. And being part of that trajectory, it's been really, really rewarding. So I think I've started out there. It didn't necessarily change too much over the years, but I've seen the evolution of it, and we've been, just along the ride the whole way. And it's been a really wonderful thing to watch. It's getting more and more competitive. I mean, if we look back at what the competition landscape looked like 5 years ago alone, in the last 5 years, it's leaps and bounds ahead of where it was.
Yeah.
So I sort of think for anyone that's been in the industry a long time, they'll agree with me on that. And for anyone new to it, just know, hey, you might be daunted by that level, but I think it's only going to continue to rise.
Yeah, exactly. And how have you managed to stay so relevant in the industry for all these years?
Because I'm part of the furniture and I'm still here. Look, I think first and foremost, I'm a highly educated person who loves education as a whole. So wherever I can, I am upskilling, I'm growing, I'm learning, I am taking part in continual professional development every single year. I sit on a committee for the competition preparation program for the Sports Nutrition Association. I'm stepping into a career advisory role with them. I really love all things nutrition and training, so I immerse myself in that. And then I think, over the years, it's been about really, truly learning how to connect in with the athlete around things that are not just training and nutrition. Because an athlete is a human being, not a robot. You don't just plug them numbers and expect them to, spit out a result. It's really navigating the minefield of, challenges in life and situational stuff that builds resilience. So over the years, I would say that it's been a combination perhaps of, continued professional development, ongoing education, listening to feedback and constantly improving systems, processes, infrastructure around my clients, but then more importantly, working a lot more on soft skills. So managing an athlete, and I know you'll appreciate this, Sarah, because we've been together for several years now, managing an athlete's mindset over the whole journey. And I'm talking not just the cut phase to stage, but it's the period leading into and out of that sometimes is even more challenging than the prep, phase itself. So we work really intensely with our athletes to get to know them and to get to know their physiques, but also them as an individual and their nuances and their potential limitations mentally, and then, help cultivate a safe space where they can grow and move through and around and above and beyond them,
Yes, exactly. And I think your passion is a big part of it as well. You're obviously very passionate about coaching and competing. What is it that you love so much about all of that?
God, what's not to love about seeing someone truly blossom? Taking the foundations of, and oftentimes they're wonderful foundations that I work with, people that have this raw potential. And then even for others, it's a diamond in the rough, and creating this complete gem at the end. Sometimes for me, it's the ones that have the greatest adversity that I get the most fulfillment out of helping, because you help them remove themselves as a barrier to their objectives and goals, and you actually get to a place of nurturing someone through situations they would have otherwise probably quit in. And I don't know, it's just a really fill my cup moment when I have those situations with people.
Yeah, incredible. I love seeing those journeys as well, through you. So what's your number one tip for a competitor who wants to go out and win a show?
Oh, wow. First things first, just know that the journey is not a short or sharp or fast one. It's a marathon, not a sprint. My first thing to anyone that says to me, and as a coach, most people listening to this that are coaches are going to know that what I'm saying is true. 9 out of 10 people will come to you and say, I want to go pro, I want a pro card. And one of the first things that I think is important to ask the individual is, well, why? Why do you want the pro card? What does it mean to you? What's your driving force? And we like to come from the place of knowing the why first, and then starting to blueprint through that, and creating a bit of a game plan around actual timelines and realistic expectations for where they are now versus where they need to be, and bridging that gap. Because building muscle doesn't happen overnight, and progress and improvements are not linear. So realistically, I would say get with someone, coach or mentor or friend or anyone that's just even seasoned pro, that can give you a very honest and objective level of feedback about where you are right now versus where you want to go, and give you an expectation that it might happen over several years. It's not going to be, yep, sure, let's go 12-week cut and you'll go pro, because for most people it doesn't happen that way. So I would strongly suggest that as a first timer, if a pro card is on your cards for you, dig a little deeper as to the why, because that's going to play an important part when the going gets tough, and it's going to. And it's going to keep you on the path when, gratification is delayed because you're in build processes and seasons, as you've experienced, Sarah. It can be difficult sometimes. You go through that uncomfortable period and there's a level of discomfort that you're not familiar with, and you've got to trust in that process and trust that this discomfort is going to provide you with the physique at the end that will get you the pro card. But the pro card is not won by who is the leanest on the stage from a 12-week cut. It's won by who's done the reps and the rounds and the seasons prior to the cut to stage, who gets on stage with the physique and the muscle that meets the criteria. So I think that's probably a very long-winded way of saying, do you have the mass and have you got the time?
Yes, exactly. And you mentioned obviously the competitors' why as well.
It's important.
Is there a common why that you see in successful competitors?
Yeah, look, the most successful competitors I know, my absolute best pros, and, even if we want to take a stab at myself, and, I've won multiple titles, it was never about how I look. Never. It was never, ever about how I look. It was about building the strength and building the resilience and seeing my physique change and challenging myself and breaking barriers and breaking limits and crashing through glass ceilings that people would like to have imposed upon me. It was never about how I looked. It was never about acceptance of others, and it was never about being judged by others with a level of status. It was never those things for me. So when I get people that come to me and they are just fierce internal competitors with themselves, and when they are seeking, just a mass and intense level of personal development and growth, and I'm talking as a human, not just as a bikini body, they're the ones that I get pumped for, because I'm like, yes, this is going to be a potential future champion.
Yes, exactly.
This is someone who is coachable to the highest degree. You're someone like that, Sarah. I use you all the time. I pimp her out frequently. Go check this chick's social. This is what you need to be like.
Yeah.
It is really rare. Unfortunately, I would honestly have to say that 80% of competitors that get on stage probably should never compete, unfortunately. But it's true. It's chasing, trying to move away from something rather than chasing something positive. So I think the most successful people are intrinsically motivated by reasons and whys that are much deeper than aesthetics and approval. And they are, actually serious athletes. They focus on performance. They get down and dirty in the weeds of the data, and they live for that shit, and science is king. So that's what success sounds like to me.
Yeah, for sure. And what advice do you have for someone who potentially needs to enter a build phase, but they're scared to gain that body fat and go through that process?
This is so many ladies. Look, and I even say to all of my team, I had my first season of discomfort, and I remember exactly what that felt like. And it's not easy, and it is not kind. You definitely have internal dialogue at times you've got to catch yourself on and pull yourself back from, and that's where having a really good coach helps, and even just a really understanding support circle. But I would say just know that on the other side of that very temporary, and 9 months to grow is not long. Building natural muscle takes a freaking long time. So if you're going to go through a 9 or a 12-month building phase, it's not a substantially long period of time. It's a very temporary blink of the eye, really. So if you can just battle it out, on the other side of that level of discomfort is going to be some pretty beautiful moments of improvements, you know. And when you peel back the layers, and hopefully you don't go getting too messy in your off season, there's no need for that. But when you do peel back and show that conditioning, you'll really be grateful for the time you spent fueling yourself for the performance and actually, you know, allowing adaptation to occur, because you will come back with the improvements that the judges have either told you to go get or made the improvements prior to your first stage so that you actually get a top 5 placing in your very first show.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what separates people at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think social media is a big part as well. Like so many girls only share lean comp photos or prep content, and you don't actually realize, and I didn't realize before I did a build phase, that, you know, you do actually have to gain a little bit of body fat. And like you said, you don't have to get messy, but you're obviously bigger than you are on stage and you look a bit different. So I think it's important sharing that aspect of it as well.
Yeah. And look, I'm doing that at the moment, everyone watching this. So I'm going through a comeback phase post our second child. And instead of rushing back to stage just to do something that people thought was crazy to show that it could be done, I'm now going to do the smart thing and actually practice what I preach. And I have not dieted, and I'm sitting here with a chubby mum face, and who freaking cares, because I'm building back my booty, people. And, you know, regardless of training all the way through pregnancy, you can't train the same and you will still lose mass. And I definitely did. I actually just went and got my DEXA done, compared it to my last season of competing. We've now established that it's exactly 3.1 kilos of difference between when I won my last world title in the Bahamas and now. Now, is that a crazy amount of mass? Look, it's a decent amount, and it's definitely going to be, you know, work for me to get it back. But I do have muscle memory. I've sat at that size before and for a while, right? And was super conditioned and had decent, you know, muscle building phases over a course of about a decade. So I'm hoping I have sufficient time, but everyone listening to this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about hoping I have sufficient time to recover 3 kilos of mass that I've already held before, so it's not building brand new space. And I'm hoping to do that in the next, it's going to be just over a year before I cut.
What are your plans for competing? If you don't mind sharing.
Coming back for that world title, baby.
Amazing.
I'm hoping to anyway. Let's see. Look, I always like to speak things into existence, and I do back myself. Like, I know what I'm capable of. So it's not an arrogance that I say I know I can win. I know I can. I also know, though, that the game has leveled up. I also know that there are amazing physiques out there from women that have been competing the last 3 to 4 years while I've been off doing IVF and babies. And, you know, they're going to be, they're hot on my tail. Some of them are even maybe slightly ahead of me right now. Will they be in a year and a half? I don't know, but I'm going to go for it, you know? So what does that look like? Doing what I've just talked about. Eating all the damn food, not dieting, sitting here in tights and a sweatshirt because everything else doesn't really probably fit me in my wardrobe. But hey, and you know, and laughing about it. Like I'm taking it quite lightly. I'm just leaning into it, and I'm sharing it all on my social media. So anyone who at the moment is really scared to go into a build phase, just follow my ass, because I'm going to show you all of it as it grows in all its glory. And hopefully it will just give you, because I like to take the mickey out and everything. As you can tell, I have a sense of humor about a lot of scenarios that most people find uncomfortable, because it's how I work through things. And I think it's sometimes nice to be able to see someone else doing what you find particularly challenging, or that you think people might judge you for, especially, and this is my goal, because it is so confronting to do it, to get up and post the things I'm posting, but I'm doing it in the hope that maybe at least it helps a handful of others out there to have the courage to lean into their first proper build phase, probably, and seriously actually change their physique, change their metabolic baseline, change their health, and change their starting point for a better prep to the next stage. I think the biggest mistake people make is stage on stage on stage, no off season, no downtime, no recovery of health markers, and no progress when they get to that next stage, really.
Yeah. And what advice do you have for competitors who step on stage and don't necessarily get the placing that they want? Like, how can they deal with their mindset around that?
Look, I think you've got to expect it. Like, one person once said to me, and this has stuck with me ever since, and I think it's a very powerful statement. In any room you walk into, when it comes to the competition space, you have the odds 99% chance against you to win. So when you think about that, it really puts it into perspective. And so we're chasing the 1%ers. We're nailing everything in our control every single season to be the 1% that takes the title, right? Absolutely. And I don't think you should lose sight of that. But it gives you perspective that if you just miss it this time, or if we're just outside the top 5 this time, we're still getting closer to that 1%. And knowing that it's 99% against you to win there's a level of comfort in that sense, that when you don't win straight away, it is okay. It's not the end of the world. You're not shit. You're not a failure. You still have potential. You're probably just not quite there yet. And the person who beat you has probably been doing it for a few years longer, has had many more stage levels of experience than you, has been on multiple stages across multiple federations, may just be in a different space of life where their self-acceptance is higher. Could be many things, a myriad of things, right? But my point is, there is no such thing as failure. There is only an opportunity for growth. So in every single time you take a second, a third, or you're the bridesmaid and not the bride, don't panic. Go away, be objective, be constructive, and work with your coach to build the gap. Because I didn't turn up as a pro and start winning stuff straight away. I turned up as a pro knowing, and I had this objective in my head, I'm going to go to Worlds and I'm going to just see where they place me. I just want to see where I stack up, and I just want to see how much growth I've got to go. And then I applied that after every single show until I had finally bridged the gap and I started to win. And then once I started to win, I didn't stop winning because I kept chasing improvements even though I was already at the title space. So to win or not to win, you still have shit to work on. To win or not to win, there is still things you can go away and improve and progress on. Winning shouldn't give you complacency, but losing is not a failure. It's an opportunity for more growth.
Yeah, you couldn't have put that better. That really puts things in perspective as well. What would you say is, aside from building, the most important thing to be competitive?
I'll be a bloody good human. Like, honestly, I think about experiences I've had backstage with some of the biggest names in the industry when I was leading into chasing my first title. And there were some really horrendous ones with some names that would shock you. And I've never forgotten that. And it's actually scarred me somewhat. I had a bit of PTSD post my first ever Worlds backstage. And I can share with you that it 100% molded me to know that I never wanted to turn up like that for anyone ever. Whether I inspired people or not, I didn't ever want anyone to have a bad backstage experience from their interaction with me. So I believe that a really good leader, because that is what anyone holding a title or a crown or a position of, top of the line, you should be a good leader. And really great attributes come down to more than just the physique you put on stage. It's genuinely who and what you are and how you represent the brand that you're trying to be the best in, So I truly think people miss that point. It's like the soft skill side of coaching that a lot of coaches miss. I think that the good human elements and the quality that you bring and the atmosphere you have around you when you walk into a room is equally as important as what you're putting on stage. So to me, success and the ability to be a retaining successor in any kind of title is that you must still be a good role model, a good leader. And actually, I still believe it. You should bring value to the brand.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of brand as well, obviously we've got FMG, which is very exciting. How do you see that changing the community and the competing space?
I just think it's going to give back to the athletes in a way that a lot of these brands don't, right? I've seen firsthand something really good go really south simply because of its loss of value when it comes to the athlete and the competitor, losing sight of what matters. And that is the people that come to the table and step on the stages and make the whole experience an experience that's even possible for people, right? So I think the leveling up of athlete care, I think the more consistent judging and the more consistent criteria as a coach even to prepare people for is really lovely. I'm excited for that. I also think it's going to bring a whole new era. And I've already said it's leveled up a lot over the last 5 years. I think we're going to see a very fast trajectory upwards from here too.
Yeah, very, very exciting. So we do have a few questions from some of our listeners. So we'll run through a few of those. What is one of the biggest issues you've seen in a reverse diet, and how do you fix it?
I actually really hate when people go slow, 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 slow. And then you're seeing them and they're still posting their check-in photos with all their stats at like 3 months post-show, and they've really hardly changed. And the reason for that is, okay, are we really worried about gaining excessive body fat levels? Yeah, sure. And you don't want to go and become the Goodyear blimp straight after a show? No. And should you be going straight to the bakery and eating all the food you see just because you can, because it fits in your mouth? Absolutely not. But does it have to be so slow and snail-like that you're actually leaving potential adaptations on the table? Absolutely not. So I think the biggest mistake people make is they go too slowly. Sometimes that has one of two outcomes. It's either they are too restrictive and then binge on everything and they develop this really unhealthy cycle of eating and relationship with food, or it is they are too slow and they waste time and their next show season is too close and they've lost potential adaptation. So they've lost the opportunity to build mass faster. So for me personally, I think the best approach usually is a recovery of health more so than a slow reverse. And it would be to go to your true current maintenance as quickly as possible and start to get your health markers back online. Optimize recovery, optimize your, time in the gym, and start getting back to the drawing board of how am I going to improve? How am I going to progress? How am I taking this physique to a whole nother level the next time I get on stage?
Yeah.
Not to mention, how am I going to get myself back to full health?
And is that an optimal time to be building muscle post-show once you've recovered?
I always say as long as you possibly can, people, unless you're almost there. And you get this, if you come in second place and we know you're literally almost there and it's just a conditioning thing, mass is fine, then I would say turn around, prep again, go to the next stage you can, like we did when we went to Dallas. It was just get on the next stage with that slightly improved physique because you're going to take it. And you can tell, as a coach, you can tell when someone is right at the precipice or we still have a big gap. And so I think that's going to determine how long you should move into that, growth phase. And then I guess there's a couple of other factors to play with too. When you're already a crowned athlete, it's, do you lose relevance leaving the stage for too long? There's a whole bunch of other factors that come into it, but it's a case by case basis, person by person basis. And I think, a conversation for each coach to look at it on an individual process.
Yeah, for sure. And last question, what is the best advice you've ever received?
This is a tough one, actually. I've had so many gems over the years from various mentors, but I think something that stuck with me, and this goes back to my university days with one of my professors actually, and he used to say, whenever you're in a moment of self-doubt, you need to look and really look at the people around you and just tell yourself, if they can do it, so can I. There is actually nothing that is outside the limits for you if you set your mind to wanting to achieve it. And it's kind of stuck with me too. So I genuinely just don't believe there is anything, if I wanted to do it, I could go do it. And I genuinely believe that. And I think that's probably the piece of advice I would love to instill upon most competitors, because this unfortunately is a sport that has a lot of people with self-doubt, constantly questioning themselves. And I think it's the thing that brings people undone at the end of a prep. It brings people undone with leaning into a growth phase. It brings people undone all the time. And so look left, look right, and know if they can do it, so can I.
Yeah, I think like you said before, though, if you have a good why and the intrinsic reason for doing it, then, you are going to be a lot more successful in the sport.
Exactly. Well, you just have a reference point. It's your compass, and that's what I always think of when I think of the why. The why is evolving. It evolves with you. It moves and becomes fluid with time, you know. As your life changes and the things around you that are important to you change, so does the why. But knowing the why is the ability to, in your darkest, deepest trenches, remember and reflect on it, and it pulls you out, you know. So I just think it's super, super important. Get really clear on what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So for those that don't follow you, where can they find you to find out about coaching and watch your authentic journey as well?
Yeah, sure. So Instagram, because I'm just not across YouTube enough. It's my number one thing. I got to get better at it, right? But where do I have time with 2 under 2? Trust me, it's tough. But Instagram would be the place. It's just Alicia Kyrgios. And then Ali's Angels. We have an Ali's Angels coaching page, and that's where we share all of our athletes' journeys. So there's some really cool and really inspiring stuff to be found on that one.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I appreciate you jumping in when you're so busy during peak week with clients.
I'm so sorry I got my days wrong. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.